Hello everyone, welcome to Spinning Iris. This is just my end of the year overview of what I've read this year. I don't really divide what I read into the best and the worst of what I read because I try not to read stuff that I'm not going to like. Sometimes it doesn't always work that way. So yeah, this is what I read in 2021. So I'm going to start with the biggest, well, sort of book that I read this year. It was a pamphlet for Spacelab 3, produced by NASA. Not entirely sure when this was produced, but I did read this past summer. You can check it out here on my channel if you want something to put you to sleep or just want to know what NASA was up to in, I think it was 1985. Of course, one of the first things that I read this year was something I had started last December and finished in January, and that was Gregory Maguire's Hidden Say. I will restrain myself from showing you the actual nutcracker behind the jacket. But yeah, this was a wonderful, fascinating twist on the nutcracker story in Gregory Maguire's incomparable style. A random book that I kind of picked up in the middle of the year, just because I'm a mood reader. I don't know what I want to read until I actually grab it off my shelf and start reading it. And never was that more true than with Christopher Moore's A Dirty Job. This is about, it's about death is what it is. It's humorous, it's thoughtful, it had just the right amount of humor, the right amount of darkness, the right amount of suspense, and just the right amount of odd, as well as a character, or rather maybe character trope that might be worth investigating and doing a video on at some point. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one, and I will hopefully read some more Christopher Moore in the future. And of course, I did read Lindsay Ellis's Axiom's End, and I will be getting to the sequel in the very near future. This was a lot of fun, good sci-fi. You can hear a lot of good. This one was definitely a surprise. I knew this one was going to be spooky, but it was not exactly what I expected. This is the remaking by Clay McLeod Chapman, who is, I guess he's a local writer for where I live. Local. What has he done? He's co-authored with other people. He's written other stuff. Looks like he's even done some screenwriting as well. I think he was supposed to be at AwesomeCon this year, but may have had canceled. I'm not sure. Maybe he'll be at the next one. Yeah, Some Stories Refuse to Die. This is a ghost story. So basically a ghost story that looks at it from 3 different angles, from the original word-of-mouth storytelling from somebody who was actually witness to something terrible that happened, and then several years later where that urban legend is being turned into a film, and then several years, many decades later, that original creepy film is being, again, turned into a remake, and that whole story culminating in modern times with a podcast investigation that doesn't seem like the story will ever end. And that's sort of the gist you get with this wonderful cover. Basically describes how this story will never die because it keeps being told and retold and changed and metamorphized. This was one that was hard to put down. As you can see, I'm going to get some mini reviews in here as well. Of course, I read Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. I'd like to get to the sequel to this one this coming year as well. This was so delicious and so enjoyable. If you read it and didn't enjoy it, I'm sorry, I did. And also, kind of a random one that I read earlier this year around the winter time. 5 Total Strangers by Natalie Richards. This one is sort of a mystery thriller involving, was it 5? Yeah, 5 young people in the middle of a major blizzard trying to get home, basically. And it has some interesting twists and turns and things that are completely unexpected. And of course the book I got at AwesomeCon, Fun with Kirk and Spock. Of course I read this one when the moment I got it. Yeah, another one that is what it is, a quirky little book poking fun with Dick and Jane and playing on the more humorous side of Star Trek. Another one I read earlier this year, Sing Unburied Sing by Jessamine Ward. A new author I hadn't read before. It was another ghost story, one that sounded intriguing when I bought it, and it was This was a heavy one to read, but it was so good. So good. Got a review for that one as well. And also this year I began participating in the BookTube Spin Tag, of course. If you saw my last video, you know my list for the next one is up already. But of course, that all started with number 1, and that result was Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko, one that's been on my shelf for a long time. Finally got read, and it's gorgeous. And then, of course, for number 2, that result was Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis, another classic that I hadn't gotten to yet. It's a retelling of the Psyche and Cupid legend. Don't need to talk too much about that one. Go see my review. And then number 3 was quite bogged down because I overdid it a little bit because of the double spin that happened. That resulted in, for my list at least, 2 books, well, one book and one corresponding banned book from the decade of 2000 to 2010, and that first one was City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. Again, I'm not going to review it here, already did. Mostly good. Probably will get to the sequels eventually. Maybe not this year, I don't know. I have to get them first. And the second one for that category was 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. This one is an overdue Banned, Challenged, and Burned overview. This one ultimately was not as enjoyable is not really the right word. I didn't get out of this what I thought I would have gotten out of it. Had I not picked it specifically for Banned, Challenged, and Burned, I would not have read this. The other 2 books from BookTube Spin Tag 3 were from the 1920s. That first one was Dorothy L. Sayers' first Peter Wimsey novel, Whose Body? This was a reread, and well worth a reread because it's a classic. And another classic, Lady Chatterley's Lover by D.H. Lawrence. This one also has a Banned, Challenged, and Burned video coming up after 13 Reasons Why. Haven't even started on doing this one yet, but nothing bad. This is all good stuff. Or at least what I think is good stuff. And then from the last one, which I haven't done reviews for these either, not yet, I will get to it, so I'm not going to say much about them. The last spin tag, and I just finished these not too long ago. They are Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World and Eric von Däniken's Chariots of the Gods. Then there are the 3 books that I read for Victober. The first was The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. And the second was Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. And one that I hadn't planned on reading, but was a surprise nonetheless, Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu. Did read some manga, yes. So I did reread the previous 8 of Urusei Yatsura, because of course I did. Not because I really had, because I felt like it, and it's just too damn good. I did get the 4 volumes that were new this year, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Yeah, Rumiko Takahashi always delivers. I got 2 volumes of Rumiko Takahashi's newest series, Mao. Oof, was this so good? And boy did it leave on a cliffhanger. How can I describe it? Combine some of the elements that were in the series before this, Rinne, with some elements from Inuyasha, with the sort of creepiness from Mermaid Saga, and you've got Mao, at least so far. So yeah, this one I look forward to continuing. And the other manga that I started, Makoto Yukimura's Vinland Saga. This one was kind of a random one, because I'd started reading one of the stories in this collection while I was in the car with my mom, and it was just so entertaining I had to finish it on my own. And that was Summer Falls and Other Stories from Doctor Who. It's by Amelia Williams, but of course it's written through James Goss and Justin Richards. And the stories in here contain Summer Falls, which is supposed to be by Amelia Williams, and The Angel's Kiss by Melody Malone, and Devil in the Smoke adventure for the great detective recounted by Mr. Justin Richards. It's basically the Lizard Woman, the Troll, and the Parlor Maid. These were all so good. I liked The Angel's Kiss and Devil in the Smoke more than Summer Falls. So it was nice to finally finish this one. The only problem with this, I want more of Melody Malone, and I want more of the Lizard Woman stories. Another one that was started late last year and finished early this year was London Under by Peter Ackroyd. This is just a small portion of his History of, I guess, England series, which might actually be worth reading. 2 audiobooks that I've listened to this year. King Khan by Stephen J. Cannell. If you don't know who that is, he's the creator behind The A-Team. And this particular novel he read for the audiobook. It is abridged, but considering he's the author, I'm sure he authorized it. It is entertaining. It's very violent. It's basically about a con man getting revenge of sorts. It is definitely a product of its time and the product of its author, who was a product of his time. So it is very, very dated. And the second audiobook was Dead Man's Ransom by Ellis Peters. This is a Brother Cadfael novel. This one's kind of been hanging around my parents' house, and I said, well, I'll grab it and I'll listen to it. It's an interesting mystery. It's very melodramatic in places. This is a medieval England, sort of on the border between England and Wales, during a very rough period. But no, this was a pretty enjoyable listen. This was originally a library cast-off, I think. Read by Ro Kendall. A book I got for Christmas. Simply because it sort of reflected how I was feeling at the time. That's the 12 Mes of Christmas by Gudetama. It's basically the 12 days of Christmas, but with the Gudetama twist. If you don't know about this little character, it's a lazy egg. Just an example. On the first Met of Christmas, my true love gave to me a hot cup of matcha green tea. Meh. So yeah, this was cute. Made me feel better about the season. Didn't read as much Nora Roberts this year as I wanted to. Nobody's fault but my own for not being in the mood to just grab and read. Just kind of what I did with these 2. The first is Irish Hearts. This is 2 novels. What are they? Irish Thoroughbred and Irish Rose. The first of which being Nora Roberts' first novel. And it shows. But still both good Nora. And the second one is one of her in-depth books that I only just finished, and that is Betrayal in Death. Not even the new one. I never read these in order. I'm used to it. I'm going to add Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men here as well. I think I technically read this one last year, but in the process of putting together the band challenged and book review for this one, I ended up rereading it. So I'm going to add it here again. Another kind of random one I read, sort of in honor of the anniversary for Star Trek, I read The Rift by Peter David. This one was really cool because it begins with the pre-Kirk Enterprise. The Enterprise dealing with a civilization that lives on the other side of a spatial rift. Also has a couple of odd characters in here, one Andorian, one Tellarite on this little diplomatic mission. Of course, Tellarites and Andorians never goes well. Another random one I read this year, Venus in Copper by Lindsay Davis. This is a detective novel in ancient Rome. I read the first one. This is apparently the third one, I think. Our private detective is Marcus Didius Falco. This one was kind of has an odd ending. Didn't quite go where I thought it was going to go, which is always good. And another one. This one kind of meant to read for quite a while, and I just decided I'm going to read it this year, and that is Somewhere in Time by Richard Matheson. Still debating on whether I want to do a separate review for this one. Yeah, this was the novel that inspired the movie that starred Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour. If you haven't seen it, it's really good. And the book is really good as well. And now, the two major disappointments of this year. I've already done a review for one, and that is Finding Mary Blaine by Jodie Thomas. Yeah, disappointment is, I guess, the best word for this one, because it could have done things so much differently. Yeah. At the time, this was the worst book I had read this year. But then I read something else. Something that should have been good, but oh no, it was not good at all. Disappointment on so many levels, and that is Heart of Iron by Ekaterina Sadia. This one has an overdue review, which I will get to very soon. Hopefully by the end of January. If you want the best one, that would be The 12 Mes of Christmas, because it described perfectly how I was feeling, made me feel so much better about the world, and yeah, there you go. The cute little cartoon book was the best book of the year. I hope to read more next year, and I hope you will continue to join me. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you next year.